20th of July, 1901, Volume 4. How sweet the voice of the soul is for Jesus. As I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus was not coming. Then, after struggling and almost losing the hope of seeing him again, all of a sudden he came and told me, "My daughter, your voice is sweet to me as the voice of the mother is sweet to the little bird. After she has left him to go in search of food with which to nourish him as she comes back, what does the little bird do? On hearing her voice, he feels sweetness and makes feast. And after the mother has fed him, he huddles all up and hides under the maternal wing to warm himself, to be freed from the intemperances of the air, and to take safe rest. Oh, how dear and pleasing it is for the little bird, this remaining under the maternal wing. So you are for me. You are the wing that warms me, shelters me, defends me, and allows me to take safe rest. Oh, how dear and pleasing it is for me to remain under this wing." Having said this, he disappeared, and I remained all confused and full of shame, knowing myself as so bad. But obedience wanted to increase my confusion, wanting me to write this. May the most holy will of God be always done. End of the reading.
20th of July, 1905, Volume 6. When the soul is not faithful to the will of God, God ceases his designs upon her. This morning I was praying for a priest who was infirm, who had been my director, and I was thinking to myself, had he continued my direction, would he be infirm or not? And Blessed Jesus, on coming, told me, "My daughter, who enjoys the goods that are present inside a house? Certainly those who are in it. And even though someone has been there before, only those who are currently in it can enjoy them. For example, as long as a servant remains with his master, the master pays him and allows him to enjoy the goods which are in his house. And when he goes away, he calls another one, pays him, and lets him share in his goods. So I do. When something is wanted by me and is left by someone, I transmit it to someone else, giving him everything which was destined for the other. So had he continued your direction, given your state of victim, he would have enjoyed the goods pertaining to the state of the one who currently guides you. Therefore, he would not have been infirm. And if the current guide, in spite of his health, does not obtain everything else he wants, it is because he does not do fully what I want. And even though he enjoys some goods, yet certain charisms of mine he does not deserve.
The 20th of July, 1921, Volume 13. Simile of Water and the Divine Will. Continuing in my usual state, I was feeling very much embittered, and I said to myself, "Your will alone is left to me. I have nothing else. Everything has disappeared." And my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, my will is all that must be left to you. It is symbolized by water. While water appears abundant in seas, rivers, and wells, it seems as if there is no water on the rest of the earth. Yet there is not one point of the earth which is not soaked with water. There are no buildings in which water has not been the primary element for their construction. There is no food in which water does not hold its primary place. Otherwise it would be dry food, which man could not even swallow. The strength that water contains is such and so great that if it had free field to go out of the seashore, it would devastate and terrify the entire earth. My will is more than water. It is true that in certain points, times, and circumstances, it is as though concentrated within most extensive seas, rivers, and wells, but there is no thing, from the greatest to the smallest, in which my will does not flow and hold its primary place, even though hidden, just as the water is hidden in the earth, and although not appearing, It is the one that makes plants vegetate and gives life to their roots. However, when my love will make arise the era of my will, the new era of maximum benefit for creatures, then will the seas and rivers of my volition overflow. And as their gigantic waves still rise, they will sweep everything into my will, but no longer hiddenly. Rather, its roaring waves will make themselves seen by everyone and will touch everyone. And those who will want to resist the current will run the risk of losing their lives. Now, since my will alone has been left to you, you are like water, which holds the first place among all goods. And when my volition will flow out of its shores, your will, dissolve within mine, will have its primacy in all things, both in heaven and on earth. What more do you want? End of the reading.
July 1922, Volume 14. The living in my will must graft in the soul all that the divine will did and made Jesus suffer in his humanity. As I was in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus came and plunged me so deep into his will that even if I wanted to go out, it would have been impossible for me. It happened to me as to a person who has willingly allowed himself to be flung from his own little place to an interminable place. And in seeing the length of the way, of which he knows not even the boundaries, he gives up the thought of tracing his little place, but he is happy of his lot. So while I was swimming in the immense sea of the divine will, my sweet Jesus told me, "Dearest daughter of my will, I want to make of you a repeater of my life. The living in my will must graft in the soul all that my will did and made me suffer in my humanity. My will tolerates no dissimilarities. See, my eternal will imposed on my humanity to accept as many deaths for as many creatures as would have life in the light of the day. And my humanity accepted these deaths with love, so much so that the eternal volition made as many marks in my humanity for as many deaths as I was to suffer. Now, would you want me to mark your will with as many marks as mine received, so that you may suffer as many deaths as I suffered?" I said, "Fiat." And Jesus, with both mastery and speed, marked my will with many marks of death, as many as he had, telling me, "Be attentive and strong in suffering these deaths. More so, since from these deaths life will come out for as many other creatures." Now, while he was saying this, he touched me with his own creative hands. And as he touched me, he created suffering such as to make me feel mortal pains. He tore my heart and wounded it in 1,000 ways, now with arrows of fire, now with arrows so ice cold as to make me numb. Now he squeezed it so tightly that I remained immobile. But who can say everything? He alone can say what he was doing. I felt crushed, annihilated, and I almost feared I wouldn't have enough strength. And he, as though wanting to rest from the pains he had given me, continued, "What do you fear? Perhaps that my will may not have enough strength to sustain you in the pains I want to give you? Or that you might go out of the boundaries of my will? This will never be. Don't you see how many immense seas my will has extended around you in such a way that you yourself cannot find the way out? All the truths, the effects, the values, the knowledges I manifested to you have been as many seas by which you have been surrounded, and yet more seas will I continue to extend. Courage, my daughter. All this is necessary to the sanctity of living in my will, to generate likeness between me and the soul. So I did with my mamma. I did not tolerate even one little pain or act or good which I did in which she would not participate. One was the will that animated us, and therefore when I suffered deaths and pains, or when I worked, she would die, suffer, worked together with me. In her soul, she was to be my faithful copy, in such a way that in reflecting myself in her, I would find another myself. Now that which I did with my mamma, I want to do with you. After her, I place you. I want the most holy Trinity to be reflected on earth, myself, my mamma, and you. And this is necessary so that through a creature, my will may have its operating life upon earth. And how can it have this operating life if I did not give what my will contains and what it made my humanity suffer? My will had true operating life in me and in my inseparable mamma. Now I wanted to have it in you. One creature is absolutely necessary to me, so my will has established. The others will be conditioned. I felt all confused. I understood what Jesus was saying, and I felt my poor being more annihilated and destroyed. I felt so unworthy that I thought to myself, what a mistake Jesus is making. There are so many good souls that he could have chosen. While I was thinking of this within myself, he added, poor daughter, your littleness dissolves when it is near me, but so I have decided. I had to take her from the human race. Had I not taken you, I would have taken another creature. But since you are the littlest one, I raised you on my knees. I nourished you at my breast like a little baby. So I feel my own life in you, and therefore I fixed my gaze on you. I looked at you over and over again, and pleased, I called the Father and the Holy Spirit to look at you as well, and unanimously we chose you. Therefore, all that is left to you is to be faithful to me and to embrace with love the life, the pains, the effects, and everything that our will wants. End of reading.
The 20th of July, 1925, Volume 17. The immobility in which grace finds itself. Sorrow of Jesus. The soul who lives in the divine will is the favourite of grace. As I was in my usual state, after going through most bitter privations of my sweet Jesus, finally he made himself seen, and without even saying a word to me, he placed me in a painful position, in perfect immobility. I felt life, but I had no motion. And while feeling pain, I was unable to writhe because of the pain I felt. But I was forced by the presence of Jesus and of his most holy will to remain immobile. Then, when my blessed Jesus pleased to do so, he stretched out his arms to grab me and press me to his womb. And he said to me, my daughter, did you see how painful is the state of immobility? It is the hardest state, because even while feeling bitter pains, motion is a relief. It is a sign of life. Contortions are mute voices which ask for help and move to compassion those who are around. You have experienced how painful that is. But do you know why I placed you in this state of immobility? To make you understand the state in which my grace finds itself, and to receive a reparation from you. Oh, in what a state of immobility does my grace find itself. It is life and continuous motion, and is in continuous act of giving itself to the creatures, but the creatures reject it and render it immobile. It feels the life it wants to give life, and it is forced by human ingratitude to remain immobile, without motion. What pain! My grace is light, and as light, it naturally spreads, but the creatures do nothing but spread darkness. And while my light wants to enter into them, darkness spreads, paralyzing my light and rendering it as though immobile and without life for the creatures. My grace is love and contains the life which can ignite everyone. But the creature, loving something else, renders this love as though dead for her, and my grace feels the most harrowing pain, because the state of immobility in which creatures put it. Oh, in what most painful constraints does my grace find itself? And this not only from those who openly call themselves evil, but also from those who are said to be religious, pious souls. And many times because of trifles, because of something which is not to their liking, a fuss, a most vile attachment, or because they do not find the satisfaction of their own wills, even in holy things, while my grace is all motion and life for them. They render it immobile, and they cling to what they like, to their fuss, to human attachments, and to everything in which they feel the satisfaction of their own self. Therefore, in the place of grace, they put their own self as life and as their own idol. But do you know who is the comforter, the indivisible companion, the one who enraptures the motion and the life of my grace? Even more, she accelerates its motion more and more. Not even for one instant does she render it immobile. It is the soul who lives in my will. Wherever my will reigns, my grace is always in motion. It is always in feast. It always has something to do. It never remains grieved or idle. The soul in whom my will reigns is the favourite of my grace. She is its little secretary, in whom it places the secrets of its sorrows and of its joys. It entrusts everything to her because my will has sufficient space in order to receive the deposit which grace contains, because she is nothing other than the continuous birth from my supreme will. End of the reading.
20th of July, 1926, volume 19. The word of Jesus is work, his silence is rest, the rest of Jesus in the midst of his works. As I continued to feel all abandoned in the supreme volition, my always lovable Jesus made himself seen all silent in the act of looking at the whole creation, at all of his works. While looking at them, he was as though enraptured profoundly before the magnificence, sanctity, multiplicity, and greatness of his works. And I, together with Jesus, felt a profound silence within me in contemplating his works. Many things could be comprehended, but everything would remain in the depth of my intelligence with no words whatsoever. How beautiful it was to be together with Jesus in profound silence. Then afterwards, my dear good, my sweet life told me, my dearest daughter, you must know that my word is work, while my silence is rest. And my word is work not only for me, but also for you. It is my usual way that after I have worked, I want to rest in the midst of my very works. They are my softest bed in my rest. And since you have listened to my word and have worked together with me you must take rest. Look, my daughter, how beautiful the whole creation is. It was the word of your Jesus that worked it with one fiat. But do you know what is the enchantment that enraptures me? Your little I love you on each created thing. With this little I love you of yours impressed on each of them, they all speak to me of your love. They speak to me of my newborn of my will. I hear the harmonious echo of the whole creation that speaks to me about you. Oh, how it enraptures me. How happy I am to see that my fiat in creation and the one taught to you hold hands, intertwined together, and fulfilling my will, they give me rest. But I'm not content with resting alone. I want the one who gives me rest together with me, that she may take rest, and we may enjoy together the fruits of our work. Look, do all creation and all the works of my redemption not seem to you more beautiful with your I love you, with your adoration, and with your will transfused in mine, carrying out its life in the midst of the celestial spheres? There is no more solitude, nor that sepulchral silence that was there before in the celestial spheres and in all my works. But there is the little daughter of my will keeping them company, making voice heard, loving, adoring, praying, holding on to her rights given to her by my will. She possesses everything. And when there is someone who possesses, there is no more solitude, nor the silence of a grave. This is why, after having spoken to you at length, I keep silence. It is the rest necessary for me and for you, so that I may be able to resume my word again, and therefore continue my work and yours. But while I rest, I contemplate all my works. My love rises within me, and as it is reflected in me, I delight, and I conceive within myself more images similar to me, and my will places them outside of me as triumph of my love, and as the beloved generation of my supreme fiat. So, in my rest, I generate children for my will, all similar to me, and in my word I deliver them and give them development, beauty, height, and my word keeps forming them as worthy children of the supreme fiat. Therefore, my daughter, each word of mine is a gift that I give you, and if I call you to rest, it is so that you may contemplate my gift, and delighting in it and loving it, you may let more gifts arise within you, similar to those I have given you. And as you release them, they may form together the generation of the children of the supreme fiat. How happy we will be. End of reading.
The 20th of July, 1934, volume 33. Everything that comes forth from God, everything, is innocent and holy. How creation is one single act of divine will. Who is the triumphant one in the space of the universe? My little intelligence feels the irresistible strength of the divine volition that calls it. It wants it in the minds of the whole creation in order to let me see and understand the harmony, the order of all created things, and how each one gives its tribute to its creator. Not one created thing destined to occupy the great space of the atmosphere, for however little or great, does not give its distinct tribute to he who has created it. And even though they do not have reason and they are mute, yet by never changing actions, by never moving from the place in which God has placed them, it is perennial glory. So I thought to myself, I too occupy space of the great void of creation, and can I say that I am at my place wanted by God? Does my will always do one single act of will of God as the whole of creation does? But while I thought this, my beloved Jesus, surprising me, all goodness told me, my blessed daughter, everything that comes forth from our Supreme Being, everything is innocent and holy, nor can there come out from our infinite sanctity and wisdom beings or things with a shadow of stain and who do not contain the utility of a good. All created things feel the creative virtue in their nature, and therefore the continuous tribute and glory that belongs to us because we have put them forth to the light of day. Nor do we know how to do things in the least stained, nor useless things, such that everything that was created by us, everything, is holy, pure, and beautiful. And from everything we receive the tribute, and our will its completed act. My daughter, there is no created thing, animate or inanimate, that does not begin life by completing our will and giving us their tribute. Already the whole creation is nothing other than a single act of our will. Already it is at its royal place. And although unaware, yet it has its operating life of light in the sun, its operating life of strength and empire in the wind, its operating life of immensity in the immensity of space. In each created thing, it develops its life and holds everything and everyone in its womb in a way that no one can move nor do a motion if it does not want it. and the veils of created things give us continuous tribute, and the great glory of the great honour that they are dominated by our will. Now the creature remains. Who can say, original sin being removed, that the newborn is not innocent and holy? And if baptism is given, a period of the life of the baby, even to such that actual sin does not enter into its soul, is not the baby an act of my will? And if he moves his step, if he speaks, if he thinks, if he makes his little hands act, all these little acts wanted and disposed by my will, are they not tributes and glory that we receive? Perhaps they will be unaware, but my will receives from that little nature what it wants. It is only sin that makes one lose sanctity and puts the operating life of my will outside of the creature, because if there is no sin, we carry her in our womb. We surround her with our sanctity, and therefore she cannot do less than feel in herself the operating life of my will. See, therefore, everything and everyone have beginning and are born together with my will, innocent and holy, and worthy of he who has created them. But who is the one who conserves this innocence and holiness? One who is always at her place in my will. She alone is the triumphant one in the space of the universe. She is the standard bearer, and she gathers together the whole army of creation in order to bring them to God with speaking voice and with full knowledge, the glory, the honour, and the tribute of everything and everyone. Therefore, one can say that my will is everything for the creature. It is her prime act of birth. It is the continuation of her conservation. Nor does it ever leave, either by way of love or by way of grace or by way of operating works, one who by will lives and knows how to live in it. And if sin overwhelms her, it does not leave her. It envelops her with its dominion in its punitive justice, because the creature and all things are inseparable from my will. Therefore you take to heart only my will. Recognize it as life, as mother who raises you and nourishes you and wants to form of you its greatest glory and honour. End of the reading. There are no more readings today.